Welcome to another episode of Carbon Ether Podcast where knowledge meets education. I am the astute Sharif Prescott, and it is a pleasure to be joining you guys again. Thank you to all the stars for sitting in watching. Thank you for our loyal stars who's been with us since day one, and I also thank the new stars that we've acquired today. It's been a beautiful journey so far. I'm really enjoying this podcasting thing. Still rather new, working out some kinks, but without trial and error, how will you ever succeed? So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for everyone who's showing their love and support and rocking with CEP. I can't be more grateful, and I thank you 100. But today, I've decided to just sit down and discuss this whole Republican Democrat thing. People like to spot where the Democratic Party used to be the staunch racist party and the Republican Party used to be the progressive liberal party. Who don't know that? That's some old crap. If you go and you look back at history, we can see that. But the point is, we have to understand this switch thing. Why did the switch happen? Why is there a flip flop? Why was there a flip flop to give us what we have today? And it's quite easy. So what I'm gonna do is just run through here briefly. It's not to give you all the information, but just enough information so you can garner some sort of understanding, so people will quit saying that crap. It's like the dumbest thing ever. What does the parties, what they used to be, have to do with what they are now? It's like saying to someone, "Oh, you used to be a criminal," but they're no longer a criminal. Things change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. So who knows? And one thing we need to understand about politics is how does politics really work? I mean, as far as its function, does it do the things that it's so-called designed to do? Because as long as the masses disagree, or as long as the parties disagree, politics are never going to work. Then you have this filibuster thing. That's something within its own right, which makes no sense to me. And then, blocking things that's good for the people because you don't like what's in it, because it goes against your so-called views and values or whatever. You guys need to get acclimated with this Doge thing. Do some research. There are some people out there, people that we know, we talk to on an everyday basis. Elon Musk Doge, just the bomb diggity, is finding all this wasteful spending. Understand the history of Doge. Go back, do some research on Doge, and you'll see what he's doing has toting an abundance amounts of remnants from the past. So again, we're talking about the great switch between the Republican and Democratic Party. So I'm going to go through here briefly. I'm not going to give any grave detail. I'm not going to go really in depth, but I am going to give you some information. And my source is www.studentsofhistory.com is where I got some of this information, well, majority of it. Since I'm not going really in depth, I'm not going to give up all the other sources because I'll be coming back to this. But the Great Switch. The Democratic Party was founded in 1828, while the Republican Party dates back to 1854. Okay, so the Democratic Party came before the Republican Party. In its early years, the Republican Party was considered quite liberal, while the Democrats were known for staunch conservatism. Now, if we're looking at the past, we know what staunch conservatism means. To be conserved, to be reserved, you don't want to change the way things are. Let's leave it like it is. What was in place at the time? We like to say slavery. Well, I would phrase it this way. Prisoners of war. That's what was going on. Who was treated like slaves, less than humans, and whatever else you want to call it. And For those of you who might be watching the channel, new to the channel, or thinking about watching this channel, I'm going to talk about racism. I'm going to talk about women's rights. I'm going to talk about people's rights. Everybody has a right to do what they want as long as it's not infringing upon anybody else's freedom or rights or liberties or what have you. So we need to get away from worried about what my neighbor is doing. If my neighbor ain't hurting anybody, hurting me, I don't care what he's doing, or she, or him, or shim, or whatever. And I'm not trying to be ugly. It just is what it is. Mind your business, But anyways, back to it. Ideologies of the past. At the outbreak of the Civil War, Republicans controlled the majority of the northern states. The party sought to expand the United States, encourage settlements of the West, and help to fund the Transcontinental Railroad and state universities. We know that's what the Democrats do today. They're trying to give to the people, but the Republicans want to take. But this is where we're different at back in the day. This is the Republicans at this point. Additionally, because of growing tension over slavery, many Republicans became abolitionists who argued against slavery. Again, this is the past. The Republican Party of the day does not have anything to do with the Republican Party of the past. So let's stop this crap, and you'll see what I'm saying later on as I give more information. Now on to the Democrats. The Democrats represented a range of views, but shared a commitment to Thomas Jefferson's concept of an agrarian farming society. In other words, they want to do the whole farming thing, sharecropping thing. They don't want to progress forward. You know how some people like to argue about the union. I don't like unions or whatever, but that's basically in a nutshell what they're saying. I'm moving my hands like Trump. I know, I don't want to do it. But anyways, because most Democrats were in southern states, they fought to keep slavery. Now check this out. In some more research, I found that 90 to 99% of Southern Democrats at the time who fought to keep slaves or prisoners of war, they didn't even own slaves. They didn't own land. They didn't have any money. So why are you fighting for a system that's even oppressing you? But you're fighting for this system to keep another person down, a whole group, a whole nation of people. I'm not going to say race in that context because we're all part of the same race, but a whole nation of people. People who was already on this land now, but that's a totally different story. But we're going to go there. In time, we're going to go there. Now I'm jumping on to post-Civil War. Like I said, I'm not going to go into every crack and crevice giving information. I'm only here to make you think, make your wheels turn, garner some critical thought, that kind of thing that a lot of people that I know don't have and don't read and then think they know something. It blows my mind. Post-Civil War policy. As the war came to a close, the Republican Party controlled the government and used its power to protect formerly enslaved and guaranteed them civil rights. This included the 3 Reconstruction Amendments, which won Republicans the loyalty and vote of America's melanated population. Unsurprisingly, most Democrats disapproved of these measures. Now, here's the funny thing. It said, post-Civil War policy, as the war came to a close, the Republican Party controlled the government and used its power to protect formerly enslaved people and guaranteed them civil rights. This included the 3 Reconstruction Amendments, which won Republicans the loyalty and vote. My chair's squeaking again. It won. Y'all got to hear me again. which won Republicans the loyalty and vote of America's melanated population. Unsurprisingly, most Democrats disapproved of these measures. You see, because they was voting back then, after that, when the Reconstruction Amendments came about, you know, so-called black people, which I call melanated people, found themselves in politics, found themselves in a lot of great spaces upon which they weren't allowed to be in, doing their thing. But of course, you know what happens. That oh no, 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 no. They can't see someone that looked like me. Traction. Pushing forward. That old pull yourself up by your bootstrap thing. That thing there. But anyways, I'll digress and keep it moving. But before I do that, I want, for those of you who may not know, the three Reconstruction Amendments are the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment. And it goes like this. 13th Amendment. Abolish slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime. Ratified 1865. 14th Amendment. Establish citizenship for all people born in the United States. Require equal protection under the law for all people. Ratified 1868. Overturned, we're not even going to worry about that one, the Dred Scott versus Sanford case. We'll get into that on another day. The 15th Amendment prohibited denying the right to vote based on race, color, previous conditions of servitude. Ratified 1870. All these things were ratified. Slavery became illegal, or keeping people as prisoners of war became illegal. So, what happened? What happened once melanated people was given all those rights, by way of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment? Something new came about. It was crazy. But we'll get into that in just a moment. But I'm gonna keep it moving. Try to get through this real quick. So, we just went through the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. So what it's saying is, however, a change had begun in the Republican Party following the Civil War. Northern industries had grown rich from the war, and many entered into politics. Quick pause. What did they do? What did they grow rich from? They grew rich from the war. And what did they do when they got rich? They dove off into politics. So what does that mean? That means they know what they want. That means that money is talking. Things are going to get a little different here in a moment. Yes, sir. These new wealthy politicians did not see much sense in supporting the rights of black Americans when the nation was still largely white. By the 1870s, many in the Republican Party felt that they had done enough for black citizens and stopped all efforts to reform the southern states. What? If we messing with the black folks, trying to get them out the gutter, get them up here where we are, it's going to mess up our money. We're going to lose some things. And the one thing we can't lose is our money. We can let them lose everything that they've gained. We can strip them of it. It doesn't matter. Now remember, if you're paying attention how the parties were just a moment ago, like I said, I'm going to try to breeze through this thing really quickly. But this is the great switch between the Republican and the Democratic Party. And I'm doing this video because talking to people, several different people, they always bring this up. But then when you ask for some history, they can't give you any. So here I am today just sharing a little bit of something with you. Education is all you're left with after you stop learning, which means you're educated to a certain degree, which means you need to continue learning, because you can't be educated to the second grade or to the 8th grade or 9th grade and then want to run out here and make arguments about politics. Because truthfully, unbeknownst to you, you look like a real, yeah, bad thing. Not a curse word or nothing, no expletives, but you look real funny because you're unlettered, untutored, and unread, and that sucks for you. But continue to play your part. When in the king's court as a clown, the circus shall begin. Next bullet. The South was left with the white Democrats and their oppressive policies toward black citizens after the Compromise of 1877 ended Reconstruction. With the end of Reconstruction, the Solid South voted for Democratic presidential candidates for the next 44 years. What was going on during this time when they voted for a new presidential? When they was voting, um, when they was voting for the Democratic presidents for the next 40 years. Some things that's picked up and taken shape. You couldn't do what you used to do because of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. That abolished all that craziness, the so-called slavery stuff, which I still call prisoners of war. Before I go there and dive off into that, I want to do this right here. It says a new century. Where's my word that I'm looking for? So yeah, it's on down. So I'm gonna come back on up. A new century. Almost 60 years later. Now remember, I'm just jumping. I'm not giving any chronological, no real chronological orders or whatever. So forgive me. Like I said, I'm just giving you some things to look at. Almost 60 years later, the Great Depression catalyzed a massive political shakeup. The Republican Party had continued to be dominated by wealthy businessmen, which meant they had come to favor laissez-faire. That's the word I'm looking for. And you spell that Laissez dash F-A-I-R-E. Laissez-faire. Policy supporting big business. Hooray, hooray, hurrah, hurrah. For all you Republican voters out there, today's Republican voters, especially you guys that look like me. This is beautiful because you don't know what you're doing when you side with the enemy, when you sleep with the enemy. Because, they voting this way because they're Christian ideals. Well, not Christian ideals, Christian nationalist ideals. It's a complete difference, but that's what y'all think. You guys are taking your Christian faith and lining it with their Christian faith when they're Christian nationalists and you're a Judeo-Christian or Abrahamic Christian or whatever that case may be. It's not the same thing because, again, you're unread, unlettered, and untutored, so you don't know. You're going, everything is on emotions. But we're going to continue to go on and look into that word. So this is the great switch is happening at this point, a lot more than before. So the laissez-faire at this point was doing exactly as the definition defines. Leave it alone or allow it to do as it will with no government intervention. So in other words, the government ain't going to come in on this big business thing while they're just ripping the country apart and take the businessmen and taking what they want. What are they doing right now in America in 2025? And it's the month of March. What's happening? Businessmen are in our government, again, doing exactly what they done back here, which is how the great switch between the Democratic and the Republican Party started. This is how it started, and this is why we are where we are today. It's all about money. It's all about greed. So again, for those of you who think you know what you're doing, who think that you voted for the right side, you didn't. Politics don't work because the masses will never agree. But that facade of having politics is needed because that's what keeps everything in check. We got to have checks and balances. Right now, there are no checks and balances because why? Doge, look at it again historically and compare it to today. It's destroying our government. Donald Trump is destroying our government. J.D. Vance is destroying our government. You guys got to think about this stuff. Moms for Liberty is destroying our government, destroying education for children, all kinds of craziness. The Heritage Foundation is destroying our government. Project 2025 is destroying our government. Agenda 47 is destroying our government. But you people think that, hey, everything is going to be A-OK. No, it's not going to be okay. This is probably going to get worse before it gets better. Because why? Most of us who like to make arguments don't read. This ain't me saying this. This is information that I researched and I've came across. I got tons of information, but we're going to cover this again. But I did give you my source at the opening of the show. But again, who knows? So let's dive on into 1964. So in 1964, Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law. In the 1964 election, Republican candidate Barry Goldwater publicly opposed the new law, arguing that it expanded the power of the federal government to a dangerous level. Oh, Lord. Can you believe that? If you give them civil rights, you're expanding the government. Remember what it said in the beginning about the then Democratic Party. Limited government. So now, as we're pushing forward, we're in the 1960s now, 1964. The same thing, because the ideology, that switch has already begun, and now it's growing it's growing even larger, like a big tumor. The switch has already begun. So when you look at it from back then, where were we at? Come on, let me go back up real quick. So we go back here to 1828. That's when the Democratic Party was founded, and 1854 was a Republican Party. The Republican Party was considered quite liberal, where the Democratic Party was considered overwhelmingly conservative. But that's not the case today. So, for those of you who didn't understand what happened with the switch between the Democratic and Republican Party, well, your boy Sharif has got you. I'm giving you the food. I'm putting it on your plate. All you got to do is eat, get your nutrients. But you'll reject it, because that's what people that think in the manner upon which a lot of us think, that's how we do. And I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just saying, it's aggravating to listen to people and to see some people going into politics, we're talking politics, and about something such as the Republican Party and that switch, when they can't even tell you why the switch happened. But anyways, I'll digress and I'll keep it moving. So it says that, I'll go back and read this again. In 1964, Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law. In the 1964 election, Republican candidate Barry Goldwater publicly opposed the new law, arguing that it expanded the power of the federal government to a dangerous level. For giving people that look like me civil rights, that's an expansion of government. That's way too much. That's far out of reach, man. I mean, that's some Jetson stuff. They're going to have watches that you can actually answer your phone, with, control your TV or something. That's too much. Can't see that. It was this argument that led to a final decisive switch. Boom, 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 boom. There we go, people. I'll read it again. I was talking about the argument when Lyndon B. Johnson signed civil rights into law, and the Republican candidate Barry Goldwater made that argument about, it's an overreach of government, and that shit is to a dangerous level. So when you go back and you look at it, y'all forgive me, I'm just getting over a little something. It was that argument that led to a final decisive switch. Black voters who had historically been loyal to the Republican Party because of the 1866 Civil Rights Act had already been switching to the Democratic Party. Why? Because they saw the party switching. Because, yet again, greed, smart people. And I'm only talking to those Trump supporters who want to make that argument about this party used to be that party and that party used to be this party. Come on, smart people. Yeah, I'm talking to y'all. However, upon hearing Goldwater's argument against the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the majority of black voters left the my bad. The majority of black voters left the Republican Party in favor of the Democrats. They saw the Democratic Party as an advocate. You see, because that switch, Lyndon B. Johnson caused the great switch, y'all. Barry Goldwater went publicly and denounced it after supporting, being a financial supporter of things like the NAACP and some other groups. I forget the Urban League that he even financed. You're good as long as you're over here. But now it's an overreach. Not only is the government overreaching and trying to give y'all civil rights, but it's an overreach because y'all about to get these civil rights. And I don't really want you to have the civil rights. I just like to play this game. You know, that's basically what it feels like or felt like when I read it. It's wild. So, there it is. I didn't finish reading that, but that's okay. It says right here, let's about Barry Goldwater. Why did Goldwater oppose the Civil Rights Act? His public stance was based on his view that the Article 2 and Article 7 of the Act inferred with the rights of private persons to do or not do business with whomever they choose, and believe that the private employment provisions of the Act would lead to racial quotas. Ain't this the argument we having today? The DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, stating that one nation of people or several other nations of people aren't as bright and smart as simply one nation of people. If y'all want me to be politically correct, in other words, ain't nobody better than the white person. Only white people are smart. Only white people can do the job. Only white people can take great test takers and can pass tests. Everybody else, at best, is mediocre, and they had to have a handout to get wherever they got. That's what it says, not me. That's what Trump says, not me. That's what the Republican Party says, not me. This is what they're saying. I'm just repeating what they're saying, so please don't take offense to what I'm saying. I'm just giving you the information. Again, why did Goldwater oppose the Civil Rights Act? His public stance was based on his view that the article whatever of the act inferred with the rights of private persons to do or not to do business with whomever they chose, and believed that the private employment provisions of the act would lead to racial quotas. I'm not even going to go into racial quotas. If you want to go into racial quotas, please do so yourself. My mouth is a little dry. Probably should have had me something to drink. Back here with me. So, now you guys know how the great switch happened. So that's enough information to get you started anyways. So now you can just stop running around saying that this party used to be that party and that party used to be this party. Now you have some information. Do with it as you will. And yes, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure doing it. But let's go back to laissez-faire. Because how did it affect people that look like me? Laissez-faire racism involves persistent negative stereotyping of African Americans, a tendency to blame blacks themselves for the black-white gap in socioeconomic standing, and resistance to meaningful policies, efforts, and ameliorate U.S. racist social conditions and institutions. Well, this opens up a whole new can of worms. Who wants to go fishing? I do. Now let's go back again. So y'all know after the Civil War, sharecropping and all this stuff right here, melanated people are free. They were actually given the 40 acres and a mule. Johnson, that president, Andrew, he took it all back. He took it all back, man. They had thousands, I think it was something like 400,000 acres that was about to divvy up between some of the newly freed prisoners of war. But he was like, ain't happening. We can't have these newly freed people with land being equal to the likes of us when they're not equal to the likes of us. They're 3/5. No matter what kind of rights they've gained and they've garnered and they think they've earned, no. We can't put them back in chains like we used to, but there's something we can do. We can create a new set of codes and laws under the guise of something called Jim Crow laws. So here we go real quick. The enactment of Jim Crow laws sought to enforce racial segregation and systematically disenfranchise African Americans by limiting their political, social, and economic rights, particularly in the South states following the Civil War. Again, for all you smart brothers out there, I love Trump. Trump doing these same things, but under different guise. I think I have a book up there called The New Jim Crow. Because people have already seen it. Socioeconomic. No. My bad. I can't even think of the word right now. I'm a little excited and a little whatever else. Jim Crow laws were enacted to enforce racial segregation and limit the rights of black people. They were in place from post-Civil War era until the 1960s. You got to think from the 18, Man, boy. How were Jim Crow laws enforced? Black codes. Black codes laws passed in the former Confederacy that restricted black people jobs, property, ownership, and movement. Y'all hear that? Black people are lazy. And to all you other people around the globe who may see this video, y'all like to listen to people, the stereotypes and the lies, the rhetoric about people that look like me. We're lazy and we're just nothing. It's just we're over here in America just wasting away and just robbing stuff and doing craziness all the time. Not true. Again, hear me out to all the other people around the globe who may watch this. And this ain't one of the best recorded videos or anything. I'm just doing this because of frustration. I'm tired of hearing it. I watched the video and said, let me do this. And so I'm the spur of the moment. How were Jim Crow laws enforced? Black codes. Laws passed in the former Confederacy that restricted black people jobs, property, ownership, and movement. Restricted covenants, contracts that prevented black people and sometimes other groups from living in certain neighborhoods. Literacy tests, laws that effectively prevented black people from voting. Vagrancy laws, laws that allowed black people to be arrested for minor infractions. Don't they still do that today? What's changed? Not a whole lot. There's a lot's changed. A lot is better. But still, it's still there. And it doesn't seem to want to go away. Lynching. Violence used to keep black people at the bottom of the racial hierarchy. Yeah. Why did Jim Crow laws exist? The belief that white people were superior to black people in intelligence, morality, and civilized behavior. The fear that interracial sexual relationships would produce mongrels, would produce a mongrel race that would destroy America. For you people that don't live in America, this is real. These laws was passed to keep us down, and then they get on the radios and TVs and newspapers and magazines when they go to other countries and they dog us out, they talk about us. They tell lies about people that look like me. They made up stories when the whole time they create laws and codes to keep us down. They give us their rations and we make great things from it. And then they turn around, take that from us, misappropriate it, and sell it back to us. But we keep doing some of this to ourselves too, so everything ain't their fault. But again, who am I? Mom, do you think I look handsome on camera? Who knows? How did Jim Crow laws affect black people? Jim Crow laws marginalized African Americans, limited their freedoms and opportunities, and restricted their social contact with white people. That's what happened. In a nutshell, y'all, there it is. There's not much more I want to add to it. My mouth is dry as hell. So that's it. I thank you guys for joining me for this one. This just a spur of the moment thing. I shot my boy Geek Jab, hip hop artist out of Jackson, Alabama. Sweet, 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 sweet lyricist. He's nice. You guys will be seeing him soon if you haven't saw him already. But anyways, I want to give shouts out to all our stars again. Hopefully we'll have another celebrity guest on the show soon. We got a lot of things in works. So Sharif is out. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you next time.